Some of the problems that were behind the scenes, the corruption that was going on behind the scenes of that building, and that's really what God did. I mean, He stopped it and got us out of there and got us free of all that.
With their dream in a state of disaster, Al and Terry sought God for the faith to believe that God could establish something concrete in the nation. Miraculously, the land in Bangkok sold for 3 times what they had invested, and new property was purchased near Siricha, a small city an hour south of Bangkok. Now free from the congestion of the big city, the idea of a more effective missions base was beginning to take shape.
We tripled our money on that property in that building, sold it the way it was, somehow for triple of our money, and then we moved out to south down to Siricha and started again, you know. So it was a matter of refusing to be embarrassed, and then saying, okay, God, this is what's happening. We don't know all the answers here, and it's not just a matter of our faith not working, but something's going on here, and we need to see our way through this. "250 years of missions in Thailand had failed to produce succeeding generations of believers. Today, the government claims that only 0.7% of the population are Christian. But Al and Terry sided with God's promise to grow His church through generational increase. This is where they would make their stand. The desire for a building to house the ministry still burned in Al and Terry Purvis's heart, but the stigma of his first failed project, like a foreboding giant, haunted their faith. Al and Terry had been warned before, you can't trust anybody here. But they reasoned, could God not form trustworthy relationships in any nation to accomplish His purpose? This vision to plant a stake in the ground and lay foundation others could build upon was not only for Thailand, but to establish a ministry across the entire continent of Asia. This seemed like a mammoth task. Al and Terry had driven their stake in the ground. They were determined to trust people and grow leaders. The corruption of one man or a dozen would not embitter them against the nation they had come to serve. They continued to encourage young disciples to rise up in integrity, to be the ones entrusted with the resources of a future generation. One of the things that we ran into that felt like a brick wall back in the day was the loneliness that set in.
My biggest struggle was just that fellowship. And finding people of like faith was very difficult.
And I think one of the things when we looked at that and said, well, the answer is that we shouldn't have been sent here alone. Like a lot of times you start out alone, but we should not be expected to stay here alone and stand on our own in this nation of 70 million people that need Christ. And you know, we come from a nation that's not even half that size, where there's churches and pastors all over the place comparatively. And yet there was that expectation that we should be fine out there on our own, and that's something that rose up on the inside of us. And I can remember you getting really, you know, like aggressive about that in your faith, and to saying that it's not right that we're here alone. And I think as time went on, we saw that the not rightness of that started to manifest in tiredness and weariness and all kinds of things in our own life. But we started seeing the toll that it took on other missionaries. And one of the things that we saw was so many people quitting. As soon as it got hard, they would be gone. And I didn't know anybody that said, I'm here to stay. And you think about the missionaries then, there's probably not one of them that's still here now, you know. Maybe 1 or 2 that have been around and some more, but still, you know, there was a lot of quitting. The other thing was the adultery. And I can remember how many of our friends fell into adultery, other missionaries. And basically they were people like us who were expected to stand on their own. They've been sent to some ministry and they're supposed to run the whole thing, do the whole thing, and the next thing you know, the guys run off.
Well, there's some that belong to ministries. There's also others that were lone rangers. And I think when Jesus said going out by two, I was convinced that, you know, it's 2 couples by 2 couples, because there's strength and agreement when there's more than just
that's right.
Just one couple.
And that's not a guarantee that nothing's going to go wrong, because we've had missionaries fall into adultery and quit and do all those kind of things too, even after we did get a team together, right? But it was something that we had to drive a stake in and say, we are going to defeat this thing And we're going to stay here. We're going to have a strong marriage. We're going to keep our family together. We're going to keep our focus. We're not going to get tired and start going off and doing something else, working for the embassy or, you know, all that kind of stuff. We're going to keep the focus and the purpose that God given us. And to me, that was one of the greatest battles. But what it did and what I could see all the time, I mean, and we saw this, is that if we break through in these areas, then we break the trail open for others to come. And I think, you know, the heartbreak that we've suffered in the past, in the sense of missionaries who were some of our best friends, and you find out that they've fallen, they've gone into those, they've given up the vision that God had given them, they're gone off doing something else. And to me, I'm just thinking, you know what, God, you've sent so many people here over hundreds of years, and millions of dollars have been invested in here. And I always think of the grandma back home who sent that $5, you know, to the missionary who said he was going to change the nation. And the next thing, he didn't. He fell, he quit, whatever it was. And I say, you know what? That grandma sowed that seed into this nation, and that seed is still there. She sowed it in faith. And that's what stirs up in my heart. We're going to reap all of the things that have been invested in this nation. If we'll get the breakthrough, we'll lead the team. And God's spoken that over our kids, right? They'll be restorers of paths to dwell in. You know, the rebuilders of the old foundations. All of those things, tremendous promises out of Isaiah. That we're going to see all of this stuff restored. That none of it's going to be lost because we're making a breakthrough. It's worth giving our lives for. I don't know how many times other missionaries had come to us over the years and said, you know, where do you guys get such good workers? I can't find any national people that I can trust. They're not trustworthy with money. They're not, you know, trustworthy with equipment, and they're just not faithful. And to me, that's a puzzle. How you could not have people that you could trust, because we found it so wonderful working with the Thai people, the national people, and some of our absolute best friends and closest brothers and sisters over the years have been, you know, really sons and daughters, and mums and dads and brothers and sisters in the faith, Thai people. And what we found is that when you simply begin to trust someone, they'll rise to that expectation. But if we come with the idea that we're the smart white guy, and we're the guy that knows all the answers, and you know, you can't trust anybody around here, and you're not going to do it the way I want to. No, you can't. And that's one of the things I had to bite the bullet on right away, is that perfectionist thing in me particularly. I had to go. And that's one of the breakthroughs that we needed to have in this nation, was we cannot come as missionaries and be the colonial bosses. We have people around us who we can absolutely trust with anything. I trust them with our lives, really. Trust them with our kids, trust them with the resources of the ministry, trust them with everything, because, you know, this is for them, it's not for us.
Yeah, it's true.
The Lighthouse building project had been in the hearts of Dr. Al and Terry Purvis for more than 20 years. And as the farmhouse became unlivable, they tried once again to fundraise for money to build a building.
About 8 years ago, we came to Thailand to visit our daughter, who was going to Bible college here. And at that point, we came, just before we left for Canada, we went to the children's home, El Shaddai 2 Children's Home. And while we were there, we noticed that there was great need. The building was on the Lighthouse property here, and it was dilapidated. It was bug infested and mouse and you name it. It was just, so at that time we went home, and it was really on our heart that we needed to do something for this children's home.
In 2005, a Thai businessman friend suggested they take out a mortgage to build an apartment complex using the title deed of the land as collateral. That way the rooms they rented out could pay for the mortgage and generate money for the children's home and the ministry. Something witnessed in Al Purvis's heart, and he knew this suggestion was the voice of God to enable him to plant that stake in the ground and build something for future generations.
One of the things that excites me in the ministry is when you see a vision and a purpose, and we know we're to go a certain direction, and you know, we pray into it and we seek God about it, and we read the promises about it, and then it's like at some point, someday, in the most inconspicuous time, all of a sudden, bang, there's the idea. And the idea to build the lighthouse, to build this building, to me was so simply amazing and simply simple that you kind of give yourself a shake and say, why didn't I ever think of that before?
Yeah.
But it's something that, it's not just the idea, the natural idea that's going to do it, but it's the revelation that God drops in our spirit, however He does that, whoever He might use to do that, that all of a sudden you've got your answer. And when you've got your answer, now you've got the focus and the drive, and you've got something to pin your faith on. And we say, okay, now we see what God wants to do to build this thing, and we head into it like with full exuberance and full expectation that the thing's going to work out absolutely wonderful.
Al and Terry and their ministry team moved forward with plans to build, and miracle after miracle took place as they did so. They went to the bank, who after a senior staff board meeting granted them a mortgage in confidence that Christians could be trusted to pay back the money.
We were excited about the Lighthouse project back then because the plan for the building was to provide an income for the children's home ministry over here. We would save some of the fundraising that you'd have to do on a regular basis back in Canada and elsewhere in the world. Hopefully this building, once it got paid off, would pay for keep the ministry going, and then when this home's finished, another home could start in here, etc. So we saw the plan, we saw the future for this home. There'd already been one family raised in that home, you know, in the old house, and then this was the start for another family to be raised here, and hopefully another one or two, or who knows how many more after that. So, you know, it was a long-term thing that we saw, that we got excited about. So that's why we jumped in with both feet.
Al and Terry hired a construction company to build the Lighthouse, a 5-story building on the property in Sriracha, Thailand.
When we started into the project here, of course, your mind goes back to the project in Bangkok that we never completed, and it kind of seems like a failure to think about that. And there was just a lot of messes there, a lot of things that weren't really clear and straight. We didn't have the things that we needed, and then all of a sudden now we have this wonderful couple who's part of our ministry, and you know, she is the chairman of our foundation in Thailand and a graduate from our Bible school, and really like a spiritual daughter to us. And everything went so wonderfully, and miracles that God did. I remember, you know, how we got the mortgage, right? The bank said, well, because we trust you because you're Christians, we're going to give you this mortgage. So we headed into the project and we're thinking, you know what, this thing is a breeze.
10 months into the building project, events took place in Thailand that no one could have foreseen. Thailand fell into a political and economic tailspin, forcing Al and Terry and their ministry team into the fight of their lives.